Welcome to Darker Things, the series that dives into the chilling depths of history's most disturbed events and personalities.
Welcome back to another episode of Darker Things. I'm your host, Doug Duncan. As we continue to cover history's most disturbing events and personalities, we're going to return to our deep dive content with a subject we previously covered in another video, a digest version previously covered, that of John Wayne Gacy, the Killer Clown.
To his counterparts, John Wayne Gacy seemed to be an average businessman, an independent contractor doing his best to keep up with the Joneses. Gacy fit into the idealistic community he surrounded himself in. He was a family man and devoted father to his stepchild. He had a thriving business and would host parties for the affluent and common folk alike. Gacy would entertain at parties and community events. He enjoyed showing up as a clown and performing magic tricks. He was in the eyes of many an ideal neighbor. But underneath the surface, Gacy was a ticking time bomb and was hiding a dark and sinister secret. Now, just like we have in our coverage of Jim Jones and David Koresh, we are going to rewind the clock and examine John Wayne Gacy's childhood and adolescence to see if we can glean any clues as to why he would become the Killer Clown. John Wayne Gacy was born in the windy city of Chicago, Illinois on March 17, 1942. His father, John Stanley Gacy, and mother, Mary and Elaine Robinson, welcomed him as their second child and only son. Gacy's dad was a machinist mechanic making decent money and considered himself a man's man, and he wanted nothing more than for his son to be the embodiment of everything masculine. Seeking to ensure that his son made the proper first impression, John Stanley named his son after his favorite movie star, the charismatic, handsome movie star John Wayne. But John Wayne Gacy would almost immediately start to disappoint John Stanley. He was a sickly child, he had a heart murmur and required medicine. He was anything but athletic, and John Wayne Gacy was striking out at school too. He had a learning disability and struggled to keep up with his peers. Aside from Gacy's struggles, the Gacy family seemed to be an average middle-class, Midwest American family, but the family was harboring a secret. John Stanley Gacy was an alcoholic, and he was emotionally and physically abusive to his wife and 3 children.
Domestic violence was often overlooked in 1942, but it could still be said that it had an impact on Gacy, seeing his mother, who was the one who was the source of his love, being abused at the hands of his father.
But it wasn't all bright lights and big city vibes for John Wayne Gacy, as he found himself cleaning up the morgue. Some people believe that performing this kind of work helped lay the foundation for Gacy to disappoint life from death, and be able to kill another human being. Gacy apparently wasn't thrilled with Las Vegas, and after about 6 months of cleaning up after and bringing out the dead, he returned to Chicago. Back in town, he enrolled in a business school and for the first time in his life experienced a taste of success. While enrolled in school, Gacy lands a management position with a shoe company and finally believes he has a job worthy of his father's respect. While working his management position, Gacy meets his first wife, and after a whirlwind romance, they get married. And as a Newell, Gacy and his wife moved from Chicago to Waterloo, Iowa, where John, who has impressed his father-in-law, begins to manage a chain of fast food restaurants. To the outside world, Gacy seems to have it all, and he becomes a father. Gacy becomes involved in community activist groups and political campaigning. He begins to lead the local JCs.
Gacy is on a whirlwind path for success. He has finally arrived. He's got all this upward momentum and mobility, where the father-in-law basically cherry-picking a management position with the franchise. He's got a beautiful young wife. He's got a child. And he is becoming quite the mover and the shaker with the JCs. In other words, who could ask for much more? Well, apparently, Gacy had an itch to scratch. Now, this is the kind of scratch you don't want anybody to know about. It would seem that Gacy had some unresolved conflict from his childhood, catching up with him unexpectedly at this juncture in his life. that itch he wanted to scratch was messing around with young boys. And that's about all the time we're going to have for this episode. Now, to find out exactly what it was in its past caused him to want to scratch that itch and mess with young boys, and what's going to be the devastating results, well, we'll just have to take care of that in the next episode. I want to thank you again for watching. Hey, if you enjoyed what you've been watching and you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any more content about history's most disturbing events and personality. Until next time, guys, I'm your host, Doug Duncan, reminding you that once you enter the dark, you may never be the same.